Good evening, Facebook friends and neighbors. I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but I have just finally, just about 20 minutes ago, reached the apex of my patience with a lot of people concerning 45. I I've done this video like 7 or 8 times trying to get it together because I was trying to be, you know, moderate, try to come across. But you know what? That's some bullshit. So I'm just gonna let it hang out because that's how I roll. Okay. All right. So I put a meme on my page that had a picture of the debate stage last night with Biden and 45. Well, on the left side of the picture, it had 45 standing at the podium, but he was wearing a Klan hat, one of those little pointy hats. And Chris Wallace is saying, "Thank you, Mr. President, for wearing your mask." Well, evidently, it pissed off one of my battle buddies from our time in the Army. And he wrote me basically saying that he was sick and tired of people saying that 45 was a racist, the race card was being overplayed. If there was anything, Trump is not a racist. And he went on to post a picture of Trump standing next to, black people. Now, it was probably 8 or 9 different pictures with like one black person with him. So, you know what? My response to that is Jefferson Davis had black people on his plantation, but he wasn't no friend. I can tell you that. And 45 is no friend to the black community. And if you know somebody black that says, "I've never heard Trump say anything racist. Trump isn't racist. He's done more for the black community than any other person." Well, I personally want you to reach back to Georgia and pop them in the damn throat because they need to have their thorax ripped the hell out because that's some bullshit. And Dan, I know it's bullshit for the simple fact that during the mid to late 80s and the early 90s, I was in my teens and 20s, and I vividly remember sitting in front of the television watching the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and the ABC Evening News with Ted Koppel, where they almost every night were talking about Donald Trump and the fucking antics he was pulling in New York at that time. What antics am I talking about? The antics, the bullshit of refusing to rent to black people or acquiring a building where black people lived and doing unscrupulous things to force them out. Now, Dan, if you were to just do a brief Google search, you will find that there are 2,985 documents, I believe it is, that was filed by not only individuals, but there was class action lawsuits and lawsuits brought against him not only by the tenants, but real estate lawyers and New York state regulators and city officials. Okay, 1 or 2 instances, okay, 5 or 10, okay. But you had hundreds of people filing these lawsuits. Not only individuals, but you had class action lawsuits. And the city, the state, and the Department of Justice are filing lawsuits against 45 at that time for the bullshit that he was pulling. Now, I want you to sit there and tell me again, you think Trump is not a racist. So what you're basically telling me is that I'm a liar. Okay? Try me. Try me. Dan, you are a battle buddy, but you have finally gone too far with me. I can tolerate a lot of bullshit, but look, I'm done. I'm done. So I don't get you, and I don't get other people like you. Look. I don't even know what to say because I am just blown away. But the most egregious thing, Dan, that this bastard did was in 1989. There were 5 young men in New York City, who were falsely accused of raping a woman that was jogging in the park. You know what? And what they say, say her name. I'm going to say their name for you because you need to know who these boys were that spent nearly 2 decades in prison for a crime they did not commit. Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Antron McCray, Yusuf Salam, and Corey Wise spent 20 years of their lives in prison for a crime they did not commit. Even the police weren't quite sure that they did it. So, what did Mr. Trump do? Mr. World Real Estate Mogul, big man on the totem pole, lifestyles of the rich and famous? This fucker took out an $85,000 front page ad demanding that that executions be brought back in New York State so that these kids could be punished. Who does that? Who does that? And Dan, I'm going to quote something to you that he said. Let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. I just hit my mouse and made it disappear. Give me just a second here. This is what Trump said in May 17th, 1989. And I quote you, "Maybe hate is what we need if we're going to get something done." End quote. Yeah, that's what your boy said about 5 Latino and black kids that were falsely accused of raping this woman. That was his response to wanting to give the police more powers so that they could do this. Now, mind you, and this is about the same time that Ed Koch, I think that's what the mayor's name, I may have said it wrong, was doing stop and frisk. And well, this is before, Bloomberg started doing it in the late 90s, early 2000s, about that time frame. But Koch is the one who set that up. Where the police would just randomly stop people to ask for identification where they were going, frisk them to see if they could find anything. Now, if that ain't some bullshit, I can't tell you what is. So you can imagine who got stopped the most. You don't have to believe me. Google that shit and you will find out. So just by those instances alone, then let me tell you again, just by these instances alone of me living through that time period and watching these things, Trump is a bona fide fucking racist. Okay? And if you don't believe that, then you're the fucking idiot, my friend. You are the idiot. I am woke. I've been woke since 1985. Okay? That's a long damn time to be woke. But I tell you what, you go ahead and you keep doing what you're doing, because you know what that's called? That's called privilege. That's called privilege when you can say some bullshit like that on my page. That is a prime example of privilege. You know what? Black people, especially black men, do not have that privilege. Latino people, especially Latino men, do not have that privilege. As a matter of fact, any person of color doesn't have that privilege. Women, well, the ones that give a fuck about themselves anyway, realize they don't have that privilege either. That privilege is only reserved for rich, white, Christian males. The very same males who wrote the U.S. Constitution. Okay? And for anybody who's listening, who doubts anything that I say, if there's anything you take away from this, I want it to be this. Black people, or people of color, and women, the disabled and workers, were all written into the Constitution after it was ratified. We were not even thought about when the Constitution was being written. We came along later in amendments. And listen to what I'm telling you now. Those who wrote it, it's just as easy for them to erase us. Now, if you think I'm playing, you go right ahead and see what happens on November 3rd.